Would you stay if the man you loved for 10 years betrayed you in the most unimaginable way? Beth thought her marriage was unshakable, that she and her husband, Mark, had built a life no one could destroy. But one fateful night, everything she thought she knew about her husband came crashing down. Beth adjusted her dress in the hallway mirror, forcing a smile as her husband, Mark, called from the living room. "You ready, Beth? Let's not be late for Lisa and Joe's party." "Coming," she replied, smoothing her dress one last time. It was their first time attending one of the Parkers' exclusive get-togethers, and Beth had been excited to mingle with their crowd. The Parkers were known for hosting lavish parties filled with laughter, good food, and expensive wine. But as Beth grabbed her purse and headed out, she couldn't shake an unease in her chest. Mark had been distant lately, too distracted, too busy, too cold. Tonight, she hoped to reconnect with him. Maybe this party could spark something they'd lost over the years. She never imagined how much it would change their lives. The evening started like any other. Their home was filled with the hum of conversation and the clinking of wine glasses. Lisa, ever the gracious host, welcomed Beth with a warm hug, while Mark gravitated toward the bar, chatting with Joe. Beth made her way through the crowd, striking up conversations and sipping wine. But as the night wore on, she noticed something strange. Couples were whispering to one another, their faces flushed with excitement. Women exchanged knowing glances, and men chuckled nervously as if in on some unspoken joke. Beth didn't think much of it, until Lisa clinked her glass to get everyone's attention. "All right, everyone, you know the drill," Lisa said with a wink. "Ladies, it's time to toss those keys in the bowl." The room erupted into laughter and cheers. Beth froze. "What's going on?" she thought, watching as women began dropping their house keys into a large crystal bowl on the coffee table. "Beth," Mark whispered, suddenly appearing at her side. His tone was calm, but his expression was tense. "We need to talk. Now." In the hallway, away from the noise, Mark's face was a mask of annoyance. "Did you know this was going to happen?" Beth asked, her voice trembling. "Yes," Mark admitted without hesitation. "And I didn't tell you because I knew you'd overreact." Beth's stomach churned. "Overreact? Mark, what is this? Some kind of swapping party?" "It's not a big deal," he said with a shrug. "It's one night, Beth. Everyone here is doing it. It's just harmless fun." Beth shook her head in disbelief. "Harmless? You want me to put my keys in that bowl and let some stranger pick them up, like I'm some toy?" Mark sighed, as if he were the one being inconvenienced. "Beth, it's not like that. These parties bring excitement into marriages. It's just one night. It doesn't mean anything." "It means everything to me," Beth snapped, her voice breaking. "I'm your wife, Mark. We've built a life together. How could you even think this is okay?" Mark's eyes darkened. "If you won't do it, fine, but don't ruin this for me." The words hit her like a punch to the gut. Back in the living room, Mark's enthusiasm for the party was on full display. He joked with the men, his easygoing charm in full force, while Beth stood on the sidelines, her stomach in knots. When the bowl was passed to her, Beth froze. She gripped her house key tightly, the blue keychain digging into her palm. Mark gave her a pointed look, as if daring her to object. "Go ahead, Beth," he said with a forced smile. "It's just a game." The room went quiet, all eyes on her. Beth's hand trembled as she dropped the key into the bowl. Mark smirked, his victory complete. But inside, Beth felt something break. As the night wore on, couples began picking keys from the bowl. Beth's heart pounded as Lisa announced the pairings, her voice lilting with excitement. Finally, Mark stepped forward and drew a key. Beth held her breath. It wasn't hers. Mark grinned as he held up the small gold key. A woman in a sleek black dress stepped forward, her lips curving into a knowing smile. Beth recognized her, Monica, one of Lisa's closest friends. Beth's hands clenched into fists as Mark walked over to Monica, whispering something in her ear that made her giggle. Lisa beamed. "Looks like everyone's got their match. Have fun, everyone!" The room erupted into laughter and applause as couples began disappearing into the Parkers' many guest rooms. Beth stood frozen, her world crumbling around her. Mark didn't even glance back. Hours later, Beth sat in her car, parked on a dark, empty street. She stared at the house where her husband had stayed behind, unable to shake the image of him with Monica. Tears streamed down her face as she thought about the years they had spent together, 10 years of love, sacrifice, and building a family. She thought about their 3 children, blissfully unaware of what their father was doing tonight. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from Lisa. "Hope you're okay. Mark seems to be having a great time tonight." Beth threw the phone onto the passenger seat, her hands trembling. The next morning, Beth returned home to find Mark sitting at the kitchen table, sipping coffee as if nothing had happened. "Morning," he said casually, glancing up at her. Beth's blood boiled. "How could you?" she demanded, her voice shaking. "How could you do this to me? To our family?" Mark sighed, setting down his mug. "Beth, you're blowing this way out of proportion. It was just one night." "One night that destroyed everything we've built," she yelled, tears streaming down her face. Mark stood, his expression cold. "You need to grow up, Beth. This is what people do when they want to keep things fresh. Maybe if you weren't so uptight, you'd see that." Beth stared at him, the man she thought she knew, and realized he was a stranger. Over the next few days, Beth avoided Mark as much as possible. She poured her energy into caring for the kids, but the weight of his betrayal loomed over her like a storm cloud. Then one evening, while sorting through paperwork, she stumbled upon something that made her blood run cold. An old email thread between Mark and Lisa. The subject line read, "Next party." Beth scrolled through the messages, each one more damning than the last. Mark had been attending these parties for months, without her knowledge. That night, Beth confronted Mark, throwing the printed emails onto the table. "How long?" she demanded, her voice trembling. "How long have you been lying to me?" Mark's face darkened. "That's none of your business." "It's my business when it affects our family." Mark shrugged. "You're overreacting. It's not like I've stopped loving you." Beth shook her head, her heart shattering. "You don't get it, do you? This isn't love. This is betrayal." The next morning, Beth packed her bags. She left a note on the counter for Mark. "You've made your choice. Now I'm making mine. Don't call me. Don't follow me. I'll be in touch when I've spoken to my lawyer." As she drove away, her kids in the back seat, Beth felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. She didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. She wouldn't let Mark's betrayal define her. She would rebuild her life, stronger, wiser, and on her own terms. What would you do if your partner betrayed you like this? Could you forgive, or is some betrayal unforgivable? Share your thoughts in the comments, and follow us for more gripping stories of resilience and self-discovery.